Every new member of Families for Safe Streets represents a tragedy, and we wish we did not have to grow. However, as long as the epidemic of traffic violence is killing over 40,000 Americans every year, we need to continue to find one another and build our power. Before being personally impacted by traffic violence, none of our members had been advocates for safe streets, and we would not have succeeded without the partnership with Transportation Alternatives, a 50-year-old New York City-based street safety organization. TA had the infrastructure and resources to support and guide us. We are an integral part of the work TA does, and FSS has become an integral part of TA. We are achieving goals together that alone would have been out of reach. All FSS chapters are housed within an existing street safety group, and the expectations are the same, that the sponsoring organization provides extensive guidance and support to the chapter. Each shares with FSS their extraordinary local knowledge of transportation, street safety, community organizing, and the how-to of working with legislators and community leaders. Even if you don't yet have a chapter in your community, crash victims and survivors can join our network of members for support services and to learn how to become a more effective advocate. This training is for anyone who has been injured or lost a loved one in a crash, as well as the staff in the chapter sponsoring organizations who are supporting and engaging crash victims. If you have taken on the opportunity and responsibility of supporting an FSS chapter, it's important to remember that although we may appear strong and determined to advocate as a way to improve the world and distract ourselves from grief and pain, we are sensitive and may have a range of emotions, including anger and hostility, that can be a challenge to deal with. However, a willingness to listen and validate our experiences without minimizing our pain can go a long way toward helping us feel safe and supported. No question this work gives us a purpose and an outlet to honor our loved ones and injuries, but it does not come without an emotional cost. If you are supporting crash victims when they have agreed to tell their stories, here are some of the things we worry about. Do we sound authentic without being overly emotional, or alternatively, too robotic? Are people just pitying us or being grateful they're not us? Is the event too close to a significant date like the crash anniversary that will make it too painful? Do we have the support we need to function after we've told our story? Will we be able to handle insensitive comments or media misquotes or exclusion? The challenges of this work for us are ongoing, whether it's been a week since the crash or 20 years. We may feel up to speaking when we're asked, but when the event comes, we may feel too overwhelmed and be unable to show up. It's not uncommon for our members to be enthusiastic for a while and then need to take a break. Some people want to put this trauma behind them, while for others, it's a new identity and reason for living. We all process grief and trauma in our own unique way, and the impact and emotions can change over time. It can be hard for us to lose members whose contribution and presence we have come to depend on, and it's an extra part of the challenge we live with. It is also important to note that we may no longer feel safe with the people in our former social networks. What connects us with our family and friends is shared experiences and worldviews, and when you experience a trauma like ours, that may no longer be the case. Whereas our lives have taken a tragic detour, theirs are still on course, and we can experience negative interactions with the very people we used to depend on for support. This is where Families for Safe Streets can be life-saving. This group creates a space where our members feel heard, connected, and in sync with others who are in the same boat. As was said in the storytelling training, advocacy gives us a way to channel our pain into purpose, and we can often translate arcane data points into powerful human stories. For instance, imagine losing your only child. Imagine growing up without your parent. Imagine losing the love of your life. Imagine living in chronic pain. Imagine losing the breadwinner of your family and being left without resources. Imagine feeling afraid to leave your house. Imagine losing a limb. Our stories are hard to dismiss, and we want to be heard, but saying the words do take their toll on us, and leaning on each other for support makes all the difference. When we were forming FSS, we were encouraged to galvanize around one issue that could have the most impact and might have a chance to succeed even though this was not necessarily everyone's priority. This issue for us was lowering the speed limit in all 5 boroughs. We were trained, corralled, and patiently coached by the staff at TA, and that process gave us a we're all in this together outlook and created the force that we needed to make the campaign a success. We still gained strength, connection, and inspiration from that strategy, and this is a crucial part of supporting a group like ours. Another issue to be aware of for staff supporting crash victims and survivors is that engaging and supporting crash victims is challenging and can take a toll on you too. Secondary traumatic stress is the emotional duress that results when an individual hears about the first-hand trauma experiences of others. You need to take care of yourself in whatever way is most meaningful to you. Now that you understand what is involved, we want to offer some tips on what you might want to say and avoid saying when supporting crash victims and survivors. For example, one woman who was just 28 when her 30-year-old husband died in a crash said, "I can't believe how many people told me, 'At least you're young, you'll find a new husband.'" Others have shared that people have said, "It's a blessing that you have other children." As you can imagine, it doesn't matter how many children you have, losing any child is a crushing tragedy. You may be listening to this video because you don't know what to say and not to say. Here are a few suggestions. The most important thing that you can do for a crash victim or family member who has lost a loved one may be to just sit by their side and listen. There are no magical words you can say to someone who has just lost a loved one or whose own life has just been upended by a crash injury. But in the words of our FSS San Francisco Bay Area founding member, Julie Mitchell, don't underestimate the power of just being there to hold someone's hand and listen. This goes a long way. So many of our members also struggle with the logistical challenges after a crash, and being able to share the FSS resource guide and walk a recent crash victim through it can be so helpful. In the midst of grief and pain, we may also need to confront legal issues, interact with the police, plan funerals, or navigate medical care, to name a few. Our online resource guide offers a blueprint for you to identify helpful sources and organizations in your community. Another tip is to ask what is needed. Don't assume that you know. One person may be open to support or be ready to advocate immediately as a way to process anger and sadness, while another may be focusing on painful rehabilitation, navigating financial hurdles, or more practical concerns. Don't give advice, share your religious beliefs, or try to cheer us up. Just listen, provide assistance, and meet us where we are. Now that you know what to say, I just want to share a few suggestions on how you can connect with crash victims in your community. The best way is to connect with the people who are interacting with us: attorneys, local elected officials, local hospitals, and reporters who write stories about the crash. Consider placing a sign after a crash using our FSS template so that crash victims can find you. FSS members should be visible and wear FSS t-shirts when speaking to the media. Have a web and social media presence so that people can find you when they see you on TV. And share our national support services and resources so that crash victims will know Families for Safe Streets can be helpful when we are experiencing the worst imaginable.